pass through this world quietly, leaving only small ripples in the water behind them. And then there are people whose presence is so vivid, so full, so completely and utterly themselves that when they leave, the silence they leave behind is enormous. The kind of silence that makes you stop what you are doing and simply sit with it for a moment. The kind of silence that reminds you that you were lucky, genuinely, profoundly lucky, to have shared this earth with someone like that, even if only through a television screen, even if only from a distance, even if only through the stories that other people tell about who they were, when the cameras were off and the lights were down and nobody was watching. Eric Dane was that kind of person. He was the kind of man who made people feel something, not just audiences who watched him week after week on their favorite television shows, not just fans who followed his career across decades of work that ranged from charming to brilliant to devastatingly real, but the people who knew him, the people who worked alongside him, the people who shared a set with him, shared a meal with him, shared the ordinary, unremarkable moments that make up the majority of any human life. Those people, 201, speak about Eric Dane with the same quality of feeling, a warmth that goes beyond professional admiration and becomes something more personal, more specific, more true. He was funny. He was kind. He was present in a way that so few people in any walk of life manage to be. He listened when you talked to him. He remembered what you told him. He showed up, really showed up for the people he loved, for the work he cared about, and for the life he was given. And when that life presented him with the most devastating challenge imaginable, he met it with the same spirit he had brought to everything else. Honest, open, clear-eyed, and absolutely determined to find meaning in every single moment that remained. This is the story of Eric Dane. It is a story about a remarkable career and an extraordinary talent. It is a story about love and about the many different shapes that love can take over the course of a lifetime. It is a story about fatherhood and friendship and the particular grace that certain human beings carry with them even into the darkest places they are asked to go. And it is a story about what it means to leave something behind. Not just a body of work, but a way of being in the world that continues to instruct and inspire long after the person who lived it is gone. Settle in, because this story deserves every minute you are about to give it. Eric Dane was born on November 9th, 1972, in San Francisco, California. The city itself is worth pausing on for a moment, because cities shape people in ways that are sometimes subtle and sometimes profound. San Francisco in the early 1970s was a place of enormous cultural energy, a city still reverberating from the social movements of the previous decade, still figuring out what it wanted to be, still producing the kind of restless, questioning, creative energy that makes great artists. Growing up in that environment, Eric absorbed something that would stay with him for the rest of his life, a fundamental belief that authenticity matters, that the most interesting thing you can be is yourself, that performance, real performance, the kind that moves people and changes them, is not about pretending to be someone else, but about finding the parts of yourself that connect to the human experience more broadly and offering those parts honestly to whoever is willing to receive them. As a young person, Eric was drawn to performance from an early age. There was something in the act of storytelling that spoke to him at a level that was almost instinctive. He understood, perhaps before he had the words to articulate it, that stories are how human beings make sense of their lives, that we tell each other stories in order to feel less alone, in order to process our grief and celebrate our joy, and work through our confusion, in order to remember what it is that we are doing here and why it matters. He wanted to be part of that. He wanted to be one of the people who stood up and said, "Let me show you something true about what it means to be human. Let me give you a character who feels like someone you might know, someone you might be, someone whose struggles and triumphs you can recognize in your own life. Let me make you feel something real." That desire, so pure in its origins, so sincere in its ambition, carried him through the early years of his career, which were, as they are for virtually every actor, marked by more disappointment than success. Auditions that went nowhere, callbacks that didn't come, roles that seemed perfect for him that somehow ended up going to someone else. The particular purgatory of the almost, of being so close to something and having it slip away again and again, until you have to make a fundamental decision about whether you truly believe in yourself or whether the doubt is going to win. Eric Dane was not the kind of person who let the doubt win. He had something that is genuinely rare in any field, but particularly valuable in entertainment: the ability to take rejection without letting it become rejection of self. To understand that a no in this audition room on this particular Tuesday afternoon does not mean anything permanent about who you are or what you are capable of. To get back up, do the work, and try again. And so he did. Through the late 1990s and into the early 2000s, Eric Dane built his career the way most careers worth having are built: slowly, steadily, one job at a time. He appeared in television shows and films, accumulating experience and craft, and the particular confidence that comes from doing something difficult repeatedly until you become genuinely good at it. He was learning, he was growing, and somewhere out there, a role was waiting for him that would change everything. Chapter 2. McSteamy, the role that defined a generation. The year was 2006. Grey's Anatomy, the medical drama created by Shonda Rhimes, had already become one of the most talked about shows on American television. Its first 2 seasons had introduced audiences to a world of brilliant, complicated, deeply human doctors navigating the impossible demands of medicine and the equally impossible demands of their own hearts. Ellen Pomey's Meredith Grey had become a cultural touchstone. Patrick Dempsey's McSteamy had made McDreamy a part of the national vocabulary. And now the show was looking to add another character, another doctor, someone who could walk into that world and hold his own against an already extraordinary ensemble, someone who had enough presence, enough charisma, enough genuine acting ability to become not just a supporting player, but a true pillar of the story being told. They found Eric Dane. Dr. Mark Sloan arrived at Seattle Grace Hospital in a whirlwind of backstory and complication. He was Derek Shepard's former friend, estranged over a betrayal that cut to the bone. He was brilliant, perhaps the most gifted plastic surgeon of his generation. He was charming in a way that was almost infuriating because you could see exactly what he was doing and you fell for it anyway. And he was, beneath the bravado and the easy smile and the reputation that preceded him everywhere he went, a man who wanted desperately to be known for something more than his surface. Fans dubbed him McSteamy almost immediately. The name stuck, and within a matter of weeks, Eric Dane had become one of the most talked about performers on one of the most talked about shows on television. But what made his performance truly special, what separated it from simple heartthrob territory and elevated it into something genuinely memorable, was the emotional intelligence he brought to the role. Eric Dane understood Mark Sloan not just as a set of attractive qualities arranged for audience appeal, but as a complete human being with a history, with wounds, with the specific loneliness of someone who has spent so long being desired that he has almost forgotten how to be loved. He played that loneliness with extraordinary subtlety. In the moments between the charm and the wit and the impeccable jawline, you could see it. The hunger for connection, the fear of vulnerability, the slow, tentative, sometimes painful process of learning to open yourself to another person. It was the kind of acting that you feel in your chest, the kind that makes you care about a fictional person in a way that surprises you with its intensity. Eric Dane remained on Grey's Anatomy for 7 seasons. He delivered storylines that ranged from romantic to comic to genuinely devastating. And when his character was written off the show in 2012, in one of the most memorable and heartbreaking episodes the series had produced, fans around the world mourned as though they had lost someone real, because in a way, they had. Mark Sloan felt real because Eric Dane made him real, and that is the highest compliment you can pay to any actor. In the years following Grey's Anatomy, Eric Dane set about demonstrating something that anyone paying close attention already knew, that he was capable of far more than McSteamy, that beneath the leading man looks and the natural charisma was an actor of genuine depth and range, someone willing to take creative risks in pursuit of work that mattered. His appearance in the HBO drama Euphoria was perhaps the most dramatic illustration of this. The show, created by Sam Levinson and starring Zendaya, was one of the most bold and uncompromising pieces of television to emerge in recent years, unflinching in its examination of addiction, identity, trauma, and the particular chaos of adolescence in the digital age. It was not the kind of project that plays it safe, and Eric Dane's role as Cal Jacobs was not the kind of role that plays it safe. Cal Jacobs is a man living a lie, a man who has constructed an entire life, a successful career, a marriage, children, on a foundation of suppressed truth, and who is now watching that foundation crack under the weight of secrets he can no longer contain. Eric Dane did all of this. He did it with a rawness that was startling from someone whose public image had long been associated with effortless charm. He stripped away everything familiar about himself and replaced it with something altogether more vulnerable, more damaged, more human in the messy and imperfect way that actual human beings are human. Eric and Rebecca Gayheart became openly and completely a family again, not in the sense of returning to the formal structure of their marriage, that ship had sailed, but in the deeper sense. In the sense that matters more. They closed ranks around their daughters and around Eric himself. They presented a united front to the world, and more importantly, to each other. They showed up. Rebecca spoke about this period with extraordinary honesty and depth on the Broad Ideas podcast in an interview that was one of the most candid and moving pieces of public conversation to emerge from the entire chapter of Eric's illness. "He is our family," she said, in words that were simple and devastating and full of love all at once. "He is your father. And yeah, we show up, and we try to do it with some dignity and some grace, and just get through it. And we will get through it the best we can." There is so much compressed into that statement. The acknowledgement that it is hard, that you are getting through something, not sailing through it, not transcending it, but genuinely, effortfully getting through it. The insistence on dignity and grace, not because they come naturally in circumstances like these, but because they are choices, active, daily, sometimes exhausting choices to be the people you want your children to see you be. The we, not just Eric, not just Rebecca, but them together. A family unit that has survived the formal dissolution of its legal structure because the human bonds within it were always stronger than any legal structure could capture or contain. Eric, for his part, spoke about Rebecca with the warmth and deep respect of someone who has known a person through every season of a long and complicated shared life. "We're friends," he said at one point, in a way that made the word friends sound like the highest possible category rather than a diminishment. "We have 2 kids. It's not complicated. It doesn't have to be." That refusal of unnecessary complexity, that insistence on seeing clearly and responding simply, was so characteristic of both of them. In an industry that runs on narrative, that can turn the simplest human relationship into a story with heroes and villains and endless dramatic escalation, Eric and Rebecca simply declined to participate in that game. Their relationship was what it was, complicated in its history, warm in its present, and rooted always in the shared project of raising 2 remarkable girls. If you want to understand what mattered most to Eric Dane, if you want to go past the career and the celebrity and the cultural legacy and get to the thing that was most central to who he was as a human being, you talk about his daughters, Billie Beatrice and Georgia Geraldine, named with the kind of attention to the music of language that suggests parents who think carefully about the names their children will carry through their lives. Both names with a certain vintage warmth to them, a rootedness, a sense of being connected to something that has lasted. Eric spoke about Billie and Georgia in virtually every interview he gave in the later years of his life, and the quality of feeling that came through when he talked about them was unlike anything else. A fullness, a depth of joy that existed outside the ordinary registers of celebrity happiness and existed instead in the territory of something more private and more real. He was present with them in the way that the best parents are present, not just occupying the same physical space, but actually there, actually listening, actually paying attention to who these specific children were as individuals, rather than simply fulfilling the general functions of parenthood. He noticed things. He remembered things. He knew what made each of them laugh, what worried them, what excited them, what they were working through. He was curious about them in the ongoing, never-exhausted way of someone who finds another person genuinely fascinating, not because of what they do or what they represent, but because of who they simply and irreducibly are. There is a moment, captured in interviews and in the warmth with which people who saw them together describe it. When Eric talked about walking a red carpet with his daughters, the delight in his voice was completely unself-conscious. "It's amazing," he said. "It's amazing. I'm happy that they're cool being my dates to everything." And then the laughter when he talked about the particular comedy of being a parent who sometimes occupies the role of uncool dad in his daughter's eyes. Isn't that something when they turn that corner and they're like, "Actually, my dad's kind of cool"? Because there are times where they're like, "Dad, you are not cool." He said it with such genuine pleasure, such complete comfort with the human reality of parenthood, the mix of profound love and everyday comedy, of being simultaneously the most important person in your children's lives and the person most likely to embarrass them at the worst possible moment. He loved all of it. Every unglamorous, imperfect, irreplaceable moment of it. In his final months, even as the disease progressed, Eric remained focused on his daughters, on the time he had with them, on being present for them in whatever way was still possible, on making sure that whatever else happened, they knew, completely, without any possible ambiguity, that they were loved. That is a legacy that belongs entirely to them, private and perfect, and beyond the reach of any obituary or tribute. But we can honor it by acknowledging what it means, that the most important thing Eric Dane ever did had nothing to do with McSteamy, nothing to do with any role he ever played, nothing to do with the industry that made him famous. It happened quietly, at home, in the ordinary moments of an extraordinary love.
For full video, click related link below or like and subscribe this channel.